Do you guys hear that? That's the AC. I thought for a second about turning it off so that there was no going on in the background of this introduction, but then I said, no, that's not gonna happen because it's 65 bajillion degrees and the humidity is 1000% here in Cuba. So you're just gonna have to deal with the background noise. Also, I hope you can hear the bumping music over at the pool that's going down there, having a fun time as they do every afternoon apparently at this hotel. I haven't gone over there because it looked questionable. The pool looked questionably sanitary, but I will just say you guys are going to enjoy the interview that I have for you today with the OG of Adventist podcasting, Matt Lucio, who does the Adventist History podcast. So check that out. I think you guys are going to like this interview. We had some good laughs. He had some interesting things to say. And hopefully I will see you guys, or hopefully you guys will hear me when I get back to the United States. And in the meantime, cross your fingers that we don't all get dengue fever. Enjoy. Well, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here. This has been, on my list for a long time. As the OG Adventist podcaster, I've been wanting to have you on.
Yes, it's a great responsibility. I have the wig. I have like a giant hat that I wear.
You might even say the godfather of podcasting.
Yes. You come to me on the day of our recording and tell me. I like it. I can do that. I want that title.
Well, you got it. So, for other people who are out of the loop and don't know what's up and what's down, can you just say who you are and a little bit about yourself?
All right. Well, anyways, my name is Matthew, and I pastor in the state of Illinois, and I have 2 girls. I run one podcast, and I'm getting ready to run a second podcast, and I help with our church's YouTube channel, and by help, I mean I do all of it right now. And so yeah, that's kind of what I do. I can't help. I wish, here's who I wish I could be. Okay, so I think maybe people can find out more about you if you don't, not if you tell them what you do, but if you tell them what you wish you could do if you had unlimited power and resources.
Yeah, right.
Okay, maybe not unlimited, but a lot more. I would pay a bunch of people to follow me around and execute the ideas that I have.
There you go.
Because it never ends.
Actually, I identify with that because my brother and I are always coming up with ideas, and we're like, we just need to have like an idea factory, and we just pass our ideas off to the implementation people. So yeah, I'm on the same page.
Exactly. That's what I want. There's not enough time to do everything.
So did you say, how long have you been doing the Adventist History podcast?
I've been doing the Adventist History podcast for 4.5 years. This October 22nd will be 5 years.
It's like a historical relic. 4 years. That's crazy. And
it's so made up because the podcast is now history.
It's history about even older history. But you're also a pastor, right? So how do you balance all of those things, like maintaining, because that's a way longer run than most people have. How have you been able to maintain it and also do everything else that you have to do?
I only do an episode once a month, so that enables me.
So really, it's only like a year.
Yeah, if you put them all up, it's like 55 episodes now. So yeah, it's only like
compared to those of us who do it every week.
Yes. You guys, some of you, like, I think I saw, what was it? The Absurdity or whatever has 97 or 98 episodes as we speak.
That's crazy.
Like, that's ridiculous. Just get to 100 and close it up. I don't want to go past 100.
Yeah. We're done here. But no, like, in all fairness, though, your podcast takes way more research. Like, I just get on the mic and run my mouth full of nonsense, but you actually say something valuable. So,
yeah,
it's just.
Well, I don't know about valuable, but I at least pretend to read something before I do anything. Yeah, before I do it. So yeah, I have that going for me, I guess. But I don't know. I feel like 100 episodes is when everyone has to stop. Like no
Yeah.
one's gonna start at your podcast in episode 1 and be like, oh good, let me do like this Joe Rogan thing. We're on episode number like
Yeah. Or like the
1709. Like
Jocko
no one's
Willink
gonna
podcast.
watch all those
Yeah.
shows.
Yeah. Somebody might. You never know. Your mom.
Your mom would watch Joe Rogan.
No, that's true. So I'll make that note down when I hit 100. Matt Lucio says, "Cut it off."
Yeah. Go do something
right.
else. I think every creative project needs to have the end in mind.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's true. And that especially you can see this play out like in TV when stuff jumps the shark and you're like, just let it die.
Right.
Looking at
Right. I mean, like they don't know what they're doing, and that's I think just before you start anything, there has to be kind of and it may change, but there has to be a goal in mind for this thing. And I like with Firefly, like everybody wants a second season of Firefly,
Yeah, leave
but you
them
know
wanting
what?
more.
That's the goal, right? That's the
Yeah.
goal. No one wants them to be like, oh my gosh, the last 2 seasons have just dragged on.
Yeah. Yes, stop.
know?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That's what you want.
All right, I'm on board with that. So
Cool.
in that spirit, this podcast is over. Goodbye. No, I'm just kidding.
Yep, that's it. We fixed it. We fixed everything, guys.
What I really wanted to talk to you about today is kind of like because you talk about history, but you're also really hip and cool for someone in your position. How you sort of navigate all the various camps that you're involved in, because you work with young people too, right? You work with like Pathfinders and stuff.
Yeah, I like how you really qualified you're hip and cool for somebody in your position.
I'm just talking
So
like
it's
you're
like
a
saying
pastor.
yeah, it's like you're decent for a pastor. I mean, like you're cool as far as pastors are concerned. It's not bad.
Take it however you want. If you want to take it as an insult, go ahead. But the way I meant it was, you have
So
a
you're really
wide
fast
and
for an
very
80-year-old.
No, what I mean is like, okay, so you have all of your wise knowledge that those of us who are less informed on history have no idea about, but also you are doing a lot of innovative stuff in your church as far as like the digital space and like new media and all the, young whippersnapper type stuff. So you have your hand in like a lot of areas that appeals to a lot of types of people is all I'm saying.
Yeah. No, I get you. I just want to give you a hard time. But so I mean, how do we handle being in all these spaces? I don't know. I mean, I feel like that's just creativity, right? Like, I mean, you look at Elon Musk, the dude starts out with PayPal. Okay, so he moves on from PayPal, he gets into rocketry, and then
Wait, did
like
Elon Musk
cars.
start PayPal?
He didn't start PayPal,
Oh.
but that's where he made his money.
Oh, I guess I didn't know that. See?
Yeah.
Another area in which you're proficient. Random facts about Elon Musk.
No, which is when you have small children, right? You're just constantly like reading other things just to save your mind. Anyway, no, I have like a small man crush on Elon Musk. Just like a creative crush, maybe that's the way.
Do you have the dead deer at the bottom of the pool T-shirt?
I do not.
No.
I do not. Nor do I have a flamethrower. Well, I'm glad the standard has been set. I must now achieve this. No, but I tell my wife every single time I see a Tesla on the road that we have to get one. And okay, well, but I mean the point is like, I mean, you look at his creativity, it like just branches out. I mean, like from PayPal to space to flamethrowers and tunneling. I mean, it's just like that's just how we all are, right? Like we all just like kind of branch out in every direction at once. None of us wants to be boxed in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's what we do. It's what we do. But as far as like the challenge of that, I don't know. To me, the kind of the bridge that I want to be building with my life is I want people from different groups, like whether that's generations or races or kind of like conservative liberal camps or whatever it may be. Like I want to be a bridge between everybody. Like I want to be able to talk to people no matter what camp they're in, what tribe they are, or whatever. And I want them to be able to talk to each other because I think generationally, I think every generation, especially now, has kind of its own like closed language ecosystem. And I want to be a translator between those people groups. So obviously you see like I'm trying to do this in a podcast where you're dealing with like serious history and you're kind of treating them somewhat respectfully, but at the same time you're poking fun at them, and so I'm trying to like build this bridge between different types of listeners and be that bridge. I mean, my stuff isn't really special. It's just the way I'm trying to be a bridge between listeners and content is maybe the thing that I offer.
Well, that makes sense then. I mean, like, that's a satisfying answer to how you because,
Why, thank you.
uh 'cause you'd mentioned something in our podcasters Facebook chat the other day about having
Shh,
to,
that's
like, give
secret. No one's supposed to know about that.
what we say in the chat stays in the chat, except for this one thing that I'm gonna reveal.
Okay.
That you said you were, constantly having to show people, like, "How do you find a podcast?" type of thing.
Yes.
So, so how do you how do you feel that you keep yourself relatable or make yourself relatable to all these groups to be that bridge that you wanna be? Like, because people are like, "Oh, what's Gen Z doing? Let's go get on the TikTok and see," and Gen Z is like, "No, go away." So, how do you ingratiate yourself with all groups is what I'm saying.
By the way, I can't wait for the Adventist Gen Z podcast to come out and criticize everything you're doing.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
I don't know. I think everything begins with empathy. Like, you got to recognize, like, for older, maybe more conservative people, like, what's their skin in the game of life, of religion, of whatever. Like, what is their interest? What are their concerns? And I think by trying to put yourself in the shoes of these different groups, you can better understand how to be that bridge. So it's like, what does Gen Z want? I mean, does anybody know? No. What does Gen Z want? What do millennials want? I'm an older millennial myself. Or what does Gen X want, or whatever? I mean, you try to avoid, like, the silly stereotypes for all these generations, but just, like, knowing them. What do they want? What are they interested in? What do they value? And then I try to be those things. I'm sanguine, so I'm kind of, like, interested in like making everybody love me anyway. So it just kind of comes natural to think that way.
Yeah. Alright, so a question related to your perspective, your podcast perspective. Because you have spent a lot of time in the history of the church, is there anything that you're like, red flag, history is repeating itself, everyone, and you're not seeing it?"
Um, I don't I don't personally believe history repeats itself. I
But
don't know
time is
anything.
cyclical, isn't it?
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, I don't think history repeats itself. But what I do see, kind of piggybacking off of what I said earlier about kind of the closed ecosystem of languages, what I do see is a bunch of churches, a bunch of Christians who are not talking about the issues that matter. And
Mm.
this is what concerns me. So, I mean, like, we don't have a conversation. I mean, if you're not Adventist, you don't get this, fine. But if you are a Christian of another denomination, you'll probably understand this if you're Methodist or Southern Baptist or whatever. But same is true for Adventists. Like the level of our discourse, our public discourse, we're not actually talking about the big issues that we face in this church. We're not really talking a lot about our aging churches. I mean, we're all aware of it, but we're not talking about it. We're not talking about the fact that most of our churches are in the country, and 82% of Americans live in an urban environment. Okay? Like, that misallocation of our resources, of our building resources, of our property resources. Like, our people are not where the American people are at. Like,
Mm.
this is a problem. And that's a really, we're not talking about how much tithe is going out. Like, in my church, like, 75% of the money we receive is passed out of our church in terms of tithe. And of course, some of that comes back, and that's all complicated. But, like, these are big issues. And, like, what are churches arguing about? Music, women's ordination, the Trinity, like, some churches are
The
arguing about the
important stuff you
Trinity.
were just
You know what I
saying.
mean? Like, we're talking about stupid stuff.
Yeah.
We're arguing about stupid stuff. We're building walls between each other about stupid stuff. Like, meanwhile, um, there's a number of conference leaders who will privately admit to you, if you ask them, they aren't sure how we organizationally can survive another few decades this way, with healthcare costs, with insurance costs, with like the liability with vans. Like, the North American division has paid out like $80 million for insurance claims the past 6 years or something. Like, they don't have $80 million, you know. like They don't make that much money. And it's like, why are we not talking about these things? And maybe insurance is not really something a local church cares about, but like like to me, like this is the point, like the viability of us as an organization, kind of the fraying of ties between Christians, between
Yeah.
people, like the generational gap. These are all like really serious things that we need to be talking about, and we don't. So it's not that like history is repeating itself. Although I do believe if like we had another Nazi like party come up, they wouldn't look like the Nazis we have. And that's why I say history doesn't really repeat itself. They may be totalitarian, they may kill people, but they would be slightly different, and then they would try to convince the rest of us that they're not Nazis at all. Like so if you're looking for something to repeat itself exactly, it won't, and you'll probably end up making the same mistakes that your
Right,
ancestors
right.
made
Well,
with the
yeah, and that's
Nazis.
kind of what I meant as far as like history repeating itself. Not so much as like events reoccurring in the same way, but more like just the doltishness of us as a collective of making the same mistakes over and over again.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean doltishness is a great word to describe it. And I feel like we're gonna kind of, if we don't learn from lessons of stuff that's happened before, and this is the whole point of history, right? If we don't learn from these stories, then we may not make exactly the same mistakes, or maybe we will, but we're just going to make more mistakes than we otherwise
Yeah, right,
would.
right. So, what do you think? I mean, there's two separate questions of A, how do you propose we talk about the more important things? And B, will we do that? Prophecy time. Will
That's
the
a good
Adventist
question.
Church get its
That's a
act
really good
together?
question. I don't know. I mean, okay, so I went and spoke at a camp meeting last weekend, and I had a seminar talking about Adventism in the 21st century, and I basically said, there's two ways we're going to go about this. Like, we'll survive as a church, but we're either going to do it the painless way, the less painful way, I should say, of like maybe three churches that are like 30 minutes out of a metro area. They say, you know what, we're going to close. We're out in the country. There's like 5 people at each of our churches. We're going to close, and we're going to move to the city and start another church there. So either we make decisions like that, or else we're just going to wait until everybody dies and a bunch of churches close, and then we're going to have to start over. So it's like the less painful way or the painful way. One way or the other, we're going to have to face reality.
I mean, do you think that the organization that we've set up is just too cumbersome at this point to really do any change of course?
Yeah, I really do. I don't have a lot of confidence that they'll figure it out,
Which is
because
why.
there's too many. Yeah. Well, okay, so put it this way, okay? So Dan Jackson, our North American division president, has said if I understand him correctly, he said at Union, I believe he was doing like a Q&A thing, maybe last year, and he said that we have too many universities. Like, we don't need whatever it is, 13, 14 universities in North America. Okay, fine. Maybe we do. Maybe we can like close 5 of them and have these students all combined. That would help lower costs conceivably.
Mhm.
So who's going to volunteer to close?
Yeah.
I have a plan. I think that the schools should close whom Ellen White visited the least. That's, that's my
I
brilliant
mean,
plan. If
I'm
Ellen
for
White
that
didn't
plan.
visit you, you don't deserve to exist. Right?
Either
So
that or we
Avondale's
just
gonna be
go and
fine. I mean, it's not
sabotage.
not an yeah. We'll have like a giant like Hunger Games of students from each school.
Yeah, that is an interesting idea though, to like consolidate all of our, because so many of our, not only, I mean, our lower grade schools are closing anyway, even without, just
Yep.
because there are not enough people going to them. So maybe it's
Yep.
fortuitous.
And I'm open to being convinced. I'm open to being convinced that I'm wrong. If you're like a university president listening to this cringing right now, and you know something I don't, which is probable, very probable, like give me a call and I'll be happy to recant. But I mean, I'm just saying it seems like we are overdeveloped as an organization. We were developed we have with all these state conferences and stuff. We were developed for an age where you had the ride from one end to a state to another on horseback, and that level of like local administration
Yeah,
was
yeah,
necessary. Now you can email me from across the world and,
yeah.
and tell me what
And
it
it's
is you want
not
to
like
tell me.
people
I
don't.
don't need you to be within 2 hours.
Yeah, and it's not like people don't go from the East Coast to the West Coast for college anyway. You could easily have one, one or
Yeah,
two.
yeah, right,
Interesting.
right.
Now, execute mission sabotage all of our universities. Um, I want to pivot a little bit because I wanted to ask you, as we're both kind of in the recently growing Adventist digital space. But I also hear a lot of talk from Adventists and just people in general about like, ooh, social media, the dangers of social media or how the bad effects that it has. So, do you think, as someone who needs not only social media but other digital platforms to do what you do you see it as a double-edged sword? And do you think, on the whole, this new digital age is positive or negative?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think if 10 years ago people like said you shouldn't be on Facebook so much, like we usually kind of just like shrugged at those people and said just deal with it, this is the world we live in. Of course, now 10 years later with privacy, like you see this great disillusionment with Facebook,
Yeah.
not as much among millennials, but definitely among Gen Z who just kind of want nothing to do with it. So I mean, it's weird. Like, so if you would have preached a sermon or something like that in church 10 years ago and been like the dangers of Facebook, everyone just would have rolled their eyes at you. But now, if you were to preach that sermon, I mean, I don't think
Yeah.
you should preach about Facebook, but whatever. Like, if
Now
you were,
people are like,
people would be like, she has a point.
NSA is watching us.
Well, I mean, I don't care about the NSA, but I mean, just like, hey, sometimes I'm on the phone, I'm just like, hey to the FBI. No, that's but it's like with data security and privacy and all these sort of issues, it becomes a really interesting question. I don't know. I think if you don't have a plan to use technology, it will use you.
Mm.
So I mean, if social fits into your purpose in life, then use it. Then go for it. Enjoy it. I mean, don't be ignorant about it, but enjoy it.
Yeah.
If you're just using it because you're lonely, you're probably gonna be on the wrong end of that when
Well,
this
then
all
I guess
shakes
I'm
out.
off social media. No, just kidding.
And there goes all of my friends. Darn it! Can I say "darn it" in this
uh,
podcast? I'm sorry. Just bleep it out.
that's. I'm sorry. Excuse me. That's a little too tame. Please be more explicit. No.
I can go further, but I wouldn't.
Okay, here's a question. What do you think Ellen White would have to say about social media? Is it as evil as bicycles?
Okay. So if bicycles are a 10 and gluten-free bread is a 0, I think social. I don't know. I feel like she would probably put social on the scale of evilness at probably like a 6 or 7. But here's the thing about that question. Okay, like we have frozen Ellen White in our minds. Like I don't know, maybe she's literally frozen too. Like she's in the GC somewhere, like
Yeah, yeah,
cryogenically frozen until
right,
we can
exactly.
reanimate her. Okay,
Han
but like
Solo style.
if that's right. So we've frozen her though as this like Victorian America woman. And so when we kind of played this game of saying what would she think about X, Y, or Z, I mean, of course she's from a different culture, like a different world almost, so it's
Yeah.
easy to kind of picture her in judgment of so many things. But if she was born in like 1987 rather than 1827, I bet she'd have a different opinion about social or many of the things that we have today. You know what I mean? Like she probably wouldn't be so uptight as we would
You're
imagine
really
her to
walking
be
the edge here,
if she was
man.
born in what's that?
I'm just kidding. I said you're really walking the edge with this dangerous talk.
I am. But look, I think she would say the same thing, like because Ellen White was about simplicity and kind of focus and having a purpose. Like, so I don't know. I think she would just say use it for your ministry, whatever that is in your life. Use it for your calling, and if you can't use it for that, then I don't know. Keep it on the end of an 11-foot pole.
Yeah. So as someone who is trying to create new and interesting digital initiatives in your own church, how have you found, has that been successful? And do you have any advice for other people who want to start doing that, like in their local churches where it's not always easy to get buy-in from other people?
Yeah. Well, the problem with the buy-in from older people is oftentimes it comes with like that technological barrier where they may not know how to use it. Like, I mean, you mentioned this earlier, but I mean, I was just at that camp meeting. Somebody introduced me as this guy who does this podcast. And I kid you not, like the first person who came up to me afterwards was asking me how they can get podcasts on their phone. I mean, so maybe you would need to have like a class at your church or whatever family, whatever it takes about how to use podcasts or whatever. Like that helps, but I also think I don't know. I think people like to be included, and I think people like when their opinion is asked for about certain things. So if you're doing like a topic maybe
Ooh.
that some of your older church members like they have some experience with, like to go get their opinion, and they also like
Maybe
when you do things that they feel would benefit their grandkids.
yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? Like
Maybe
maybe
we
this will
need to
save
start
my
something
grandkids.
that's like a content give everyone gives their strong opinions content where all the old people can come in and be like
Hmm.
I mean, it would be
That sounds like a really
contentious.
strong opinion. It could
What?
be. It could be. Like especially if yeah, that'd be a fun version of that'd be a fun episode for you. Yeah, I
Well,
think that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna create a new podcast, a new podcast where I play clips from your podcasts, and then I'm gonna have people over 60
give their
comment on it.
opinion. I mean, I would listen to it.
Yeah,
To
I
just
found my
hear
new
myself
podcast.
get eviscerated, I'm into it. I'm a little bit
Yeah,
of a
absolutely.
masochist.
No, but
All right.
I don't wanna shortchange them. Like I feel like even by talking about the generational divide, we also help create it. Um, and there's a lot of people out there who like mean super well, but they don't know how to express it in words that younger generations can understand. But they wish they could be a part of the solution, but maybe they feel like so left behind technologically that they know they'll never catch up.
I mean,
So, I mean,
okay,
you have to,
maybe
you
making
know,
sense, but at the end of the day, we need a villain, so we have to villainize other generations, because
that's what I'm trying to
otherwise,
tell you.
what
The
are we
villain is
doing?
Gen Z.
Oh, well, I mean, there can be
Be-
multiple
because
villains.
well, there can, but see, here's the thing: like, you have got to transition to start hating on the next generation. It's just the circle of life.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, yeah, if
You
I'm
got
gonna
to
be
start
like,
like not
"All these
understanding
Gen
them.
Z kids walking across my lawn."
What's a lawn? We all live in apartments now because we have so much student debt. We can't afford a house.
Yeah, true. All these Gen Z kids
Yeah, I
walking
hear you.
across my student debt. Alright, well, this has been an insightful
I love it.
conversation. We're running out of time. I appreciate you being here. I wanna have you back at some point. But in the meantime, where
Okay.
can people find you? What would you like to tell everyone to check out that you're working on?
Okay. Hey, thanks. They can find me at the Peoria Seventh Day Adventist Church. I'm in the office right now. If you want to stop by, I mean, I assume you meant where can they find me right at this precise moment. Of course, by the time you're listening to this, I could be anywhere.
What are
I
your
could be right
GPS
behind you right now.
coordinates right now?
I wish I knew. I don't. Anyway, so Adventist History Podcast on whatever your favorite podcasting service is. In a couple weeks, we're going to be starting Adventists Are Weird, which is a new podcast
Ooh.
that we're launching, and you can check out our church's YouTube channel, Peoria Adventists. Yeah, and we love you, Gen Z. Let me just say that before I get closed out.
No, we love you, Gen Z, and we love you, Gen X and Boomers. Just you must remain villains. And in the meantime, everyone do check out the Peoria Adventist YouTube channel because it's great and I love it. And we will talk to you guys in the next episode.